In the heart of a dense, ancient forest, the towering trees formed a sinister canopy that blocked out the moonlight. The night was pitch black, and the only sour sea of illumination was the feeble headlights of Charlie's old, battered truck. He had been a long-haul truck driver for years, but this stretch of road was unfamiliar and disquieting. The forest had a notorious reputation among truckers, who whispered tales of strange happenings and eerie encounters. Most tried to avoid it, but a last-minute delivery had forced Charlie to take this ominous route. As he drove deeper into the darkness, Charlie couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Shadows danced in the periphery of his vision, and he could hear faint rustlings in the underbrush. The forest seemed to come alive, but not with life as he knew it. A thick fog began to roll in, creeping along the forest floor like ghostly fingers. Charlie squinted through the windshield, trying to make out the road ahead. He slowed the truck to a crawl, his knuckles turning white as they gripped the steering wheel. Just then, a figure appeared in the middle of the road. It was a woman, dressed in a tattered white gown. Her long, matted hair hung over her face, obscuring her features. Charlie slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching as the truck skidded to a halt. He couldn't believe his eyes. What was a woman doing out here in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere? She stood there, unmoving, like a specter. Charlie cautiously stepped out of the truck, his heart pounding. "Hey, are you okay?" he called out, his voice trembling. The woman didn't respond. She just stood there, her hair still covering her face. Charlie approached her slowly, his footsteps crunching on the gravel. As he got closer, he reached out to touch her shoulder. The instant his fingers made contact, she turned to face him. Her eyes were empty, devoid of life or emotion. They were as black as the abyss, and her lips curled into a sinister smile. Terrified, Charlie stumbled back, his heart racing. He fumbled for his phone, but there was no signal. Panic set in as he realized he was completely isolated in the heart of this eerie forest. He had to get back into his truck and get out of here as fast as he could. But when he turned around, his truck was gone. It had vanished into thin air, leaving only an empty space where it had been parked moments ago. Charlie's breath quickened, and he felt a wave of dread wash over him. Desperate, he turned back to the woman, but she was no longer there. In her place stood a towering, shadowy figure with piercing red eyes that seemed to pierce his very soul. It was a creature he could only describe as otherworldly, and it emanated pure malevolence. With no other options, Charlie started running deeper into the forest. He didn't know where he was going, but he had to escape this nightmare. The fog grew thicker, and the trees seemed to close in around him, as if the forest itself was conspiring against him. Hours passed, and Charlie's energy waned. He stumbled and fell, his body covered in scratches and bruises. But he couldn't stop. He couldn't let that malevolent presence catch up to him. Just when he thought he couldn't go on any longer, he stumbled upon a clearing in the forest. In the center of the clearing, he saw a dilapidated, old cabin. It was his only chance. Charlie threw open the door and rushed inside, barricading it behind him. The cabin was dimly lit, and it reeked of decay. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and dust covered the few pieces of furniture that remained. He knew he couldn't stay there for long, but at least he was safe for the moment. Charlie huddled in a corner, hoping that whatever haunted this forest wouldn't find him. As the hours passed, he could hear faint whispers in the wind and strange, ghostly apparitions outside the windows. It seemed the forest was determined to claim him, and he wondered if he would ever make it out alive. In the darkness of the cabin, Charlie clutched his phone, praying for a signal and desperately hoping for a way out of this cursed forest.